Lord.
Baruch Hashem. Baruch Hashem.
Baruch Hashem. Thank God. Thank God. See, we made a little prayer and it worked. Okay, this is from the speeches of the Lubavitcher Rebbe in 1989. And it was for Yud Beit Tammuz. This Shabbat is going to be Yud Beit Tammuz. And it's Parshas Chukat Balak, which I understand that's what's going to be by you, Chukat Balak, right? So it's going to put us all back together. Here we go. Chag HaGeula. Chag HaGeula, the holiday of redemption. Yud Beit Tammuz, which is the 12th day of Tammuz, is Kashur, is especially tied up with the Geula Akarit, the main future redemption, Geula Amitit V'Shlema, the true total redemption by means of the Moshiach Tzidkenu. Okay, just to refresh everybody's memory in a very short way, in 1927, the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe was imprisoned by Stalin in a prison in Leningrad. Prison in Leningrad. What was it called? Sparlenka's prison? I forget. Sparlenka. Anyway, so he was imprisoned in this prison where it was like a one-way door. People went in, but nobody came out. And he was sentenced to death. He was supposed to have been killed that day. And I know I've said it a lot of times before, but just to put it into proper perspective, Stalin had total power over everybody, and everybody loved him. And anybody that he thought might not love him, even though they presently did, he killed. And like I said before, they say that he killed approximately 50 million people. Some people say that that's an exaggeration. He wasn't such a bad guy. He only killed 30 million people. There's all sorts of estimates in it, but it seems that the lowest estimate that I found anyway was 30 million people. So in that way, that makes him pretty bad. That's pretty bad news. Okay, so he killed all these people, and in a way, public enemy number one was the first Rebbe of Chabad, because the first Rebbe of Chabad was the only person to more or less publicly oppose Napoleon. There were people who oppose communism. There were people individually that on their own, they kept Torah and they kept coming, but they kept it quiet. The previous Rebbe sent out his shluchim, his chassidim, to make underground Torah schools and to build mikvahs and to be shochatim. There was in Kfar Chabad, there was what was it, Yosef Raskin of blessed memory. He was one of he was the mohel. He circumcised two of my sons. And he told stories about how he went around in Stalin's Russia to go and make circumcisions. It was like unheard of. He's had these amazing stories. You make a circumcision, you have to circumcise, the child cries, you have to get people together, you have to make and to build mikvahs, how much more so? You had to get rid of the dirt. It was a big building. You had to take the ladies there. You had to and then take them back. And every night it would be open. It's almost impossible. And he did these things. And not only, but the previous Rebbe, he also was tremendously self-sacrificing on his own self. And they say that the biggest sacrifice was that he sent his chassidim, because a Rebbe's love for his chassidim is even greater than a father's love for his children. We don't know what that means, but nevertheless, it's true. But the whole business is no one dreamed of opposing communism, especially because, and even to this day, the promises of communism are so rosy and so appealing that anyone who would just even consider to go against, these beautiful goals of equality and freedom and brotherhood and honesty and how do you say, integrity and loyalty and all these wonderful things that communism promises, to go against those things, you must be some sort of a monster to go against those things. But the fact of the matter is that the real monster was communism. I mean, they just killed millions of people. They say that Mao Zedong killed in the name of communism twice that many. He killed like 100 million people. There's all sorts of weird starvations and programs. Anyway. So here's the Free Rebbe. Everyone was afraid of Stalin. They said that there was Hasidim here in Kfar Chabad. They said you weren't afraid to say anything against Stalin. You were afraid to think bad about Stalin. So there was one day that 500,000 people disappeared from the streets. They just disappeared. Stalin killed all of his officers in his army, and there was anywhere near loyal to the Tsar in the time of the revolution. Okay, anyway, so he stood against it, and amazingly, so he was put into prison. He was supposed to be killed, and amazingly, about 1 month later, a little less than 1 month later, he got out of prison, and even more, the communist government even helped him to get out of Russia, and they sent him with all of his books and everything like that. And it was a tremendous, amazing victory over communism. It was unheard of that the communists should actually help a person that they wanted to kill to get out, and they had reason to want to kill him. He was really against communism, and in the end, his actions actually made communism fall. I mean, at least Russian communism. Calling Yenia Geula. So that was the redemption. If you could be free from communism, I mean, basically, this whole nowadays, this woke movement is basically a communist movement. They're against everything. They're just against anything that's vaguely good. They're against it. So they're against money also. Okay, but that's not the same thing. They don't have any power. It's just the idea is running around in their mind, and they're trying to destroy as much as possible. But it's not like what Stalin actually did. I mean, he actually ruled physically over how many people in Russia? 200 million people, 250 million. With an iron hand, and he wanted to conquer more. I mean, he did for a while. He did. Okay, so here's the previous Rebbe, and he's just one little Jew with no weapons, with no friends, with no political power, with no spies or intrigues or going on poisoning people or something like that. And he has no plan for takeover. He's got no plan for who's going to take over. If Stalin drops dead suddenly, who's going to take over his place? He's got no plan whatsoever of rulership. Of his only plan is that the Jews are going to do Torah and commandments. They're going to learn the Torah. That's his plan. If that works, then the whole world is going to be okay. Maybe you can say this in another way, but I mean, this is sort of sticking in my own opinions over there and here. But I mean, today, Russia, until this crazy war that they made with NATO and all these things making against Russia, but Russia was a pretty successful country. I mean, the whole thing turned around. It became a much freer country. You can go in, you can come out. You walk on the streets, you're not in danger of being, put into jail for no reason. Okay, that's the whole idea of Geula. The whole idea of the Geula that we Jews are waiting for is that every human being should be able to realize his godly potential, which is in him for good, to improve the world. The main thing is this world, improving the world. And this was brought about by the previous Rebbe. He turned the key, so to speak, to open up the door that all good should be revealed from each and every individual in the whole world. That's Geula. And the previous Rebbe began this when he fought against communism. I'll just tell you one small story. There's a man called Foley Khan, Raphael Khan. He was the father of Rabbi Yoel Khan that passed away just recently. It was a genius, and he used to repeat 20 hours or something of Rebbe's speeches. He would just repeat it. Anyway, so his father was Foley Khan, and he was also a very unique person and very self-sacrificing. And he told the story. How did the story come to him? I think he even saw this person when he was in prison. I think so. He saw that there was a simple farmer sitting out in the hall, waiting. And they asked him, "What are you here for?" He said, "Well, he carved out when he was in prison, he met this person. That's what it was. He met the person. What was the person? It was a simple farmer, a Russian farmer, but he was good at whittling, at carving things from wood. So he took a piece of wood and he carved out from it a glider plane that actually flew. I mean, maybe it was a couple feet wide, and it actually flew. So his friends told him, "Listen, you should go to the government and show them this. This will benefit someone." So he said, "Okay." He was a simple guy, and he wanted to do good. He wanted to benefit the government. So he went and he went to Peterburg or wherever the offices were, and he knocked on the door and they told him to wait, and he waited and he waited. And he looked in this one room and he was waiting there for like an hour, 2 hours. A simple guy, right? A simple person told him to wait. He waited. Looked in the room. There was no one in the room. Another person came by and said, "What are you doing here?" He said, "They told me to wait in this room and there's no one in the room. I'm not over here. So what have you got over this?" I have a plane. He says, "Okay, come with me." They came and they put him in jail. They put him in jail, and he was sitting there waiting in jail with Foley Khan. He was waiting there in jail, and he told them the story. That he was there. I guess that when they put him in jail, they put like 50 people in one room. He said when they let him go, they some stage anyway. Like months later, Reb Khan went back to the same room, and this guy was still sitting there in the jail. And he had no idea why he was there. He had no idea what he just wanted to do something good. That was what communist Russia was. In communist Russia, they suppressed any ingenuity that a person had. Incredible, just incredible. You had to do what the government said was good. If you didn't do what the government said was good, there was no room for individual, initiative. Okay, so the future redemption is going to be totally different. Calling in the Geula, the whole thing of the Geula, even the Geula, like I said, every individual person is attached one to the other. The fact that the Jews got out of Egypt back then, the fact that the Rebbe got out of Russia back then, right, just recently, 1927, and the fact that the Moshiach is going to come and redeem all the Jewish people, this is all connected together. Moving, like it says in the Gemara, Ma Ra'u Lomar Geula B'Shvis. Why do we say in the Shemona Esrei? In the Shemona Esrei, when we pray every day, right, we play 17 blessings. We just talked about that in Likutei Torah. So the seventh of the 10 of the blessings are Goel Yisrael, right? That God you should, I say, free the Jewish people, redeem the Jewish people. Here, see, here's the seventh blessing. Here, Ra'ina Banyenu. See what is it? This one here. Where are we now? Here, this. Ra'ina Banyenu. See our troubles. Riva Rivenu. Fight our battles. Goalenu. Redeem us. Mehira quickly and for your name, because you are a redeeming God, a powerful redeeming God. Baruch atah Hashem, blessed are you. Goel Yisrael, you redeem the Jews. Now it's true, this is talking about an individual, talking about his own problems also. It says, why is the blessing of redemption and the seventh blessing? Because the Jewish people are going to be redeemed in the 7,000th year, it says, whatever. Therefore, kavua, it says, kavua, B'Shvis, it's written in the seventh. Even though this is talking about the Geula that we're talking about is not taking all the Jews out of Egypt, out of exile. This is each and every individual person. The God should just take us out from the problems that we are in all the time. The Jewish people are always some sort of problems, sometimes the problems of freedom are worse than the problems of oppression, right? Like the Alter Rebbe, he wanted Napoleon to lose, even though it would be good for the Jews physically, but spiritually it would be a disaster. It's like we see in America today, right? The Jewish people, they haven't got any problems physically. Nobody's oppressing them physically. At least, I hope not yet. I mean, the anti-Semitism is raising up. But spiritually, Jews just don't want to have anything to do with Judaism. That's our problem. Even though the Jews always have problems, and we're asking God to redeem us from the simple problems, but nevertheless, since it's called Geula, Shem Geula Allah is put into the seventh blessing, Shvis. More so the Geula, if the individual freedom from imprisonment, from his problems, occurred to the leader of the Jewish people, Nasi Ador. Nasi Ador, who Akal Shabador, who Kachal Ador, that the leader of the generation, he's like the whole entire generation. Nasi Akal, because the leader is everything. Like it says in our Torah portion. B'ki Prat, Alpi Divrei Ba'ala Geula, and especially when it's talking about the what the previous Rebbe said himself in his letter, which was written on Yud Beis Tammuz when he got out, is Lo Oti Bilavad, not only me have I been redeemed from God on the 12th of Tammuz, but also all the people who endear the Torah, all the people who do the commandments, right? That don't have ability to learn the Torah, they just do the commandments. V'gam et asher b'shem Yisrael yikonu, and even those Jews that just won't, they haven't got anything connection to Judaism except for their name, that they're Jews. Geula klolis shall call asugim of all the Jews. You take the most non-religious Jew and you say, you're a bad Jew. I'm a better Jew than you. He'll get angry. So who say you're better than I am? What are you talking about? You call the Reformed Jew. Say that's not Judaism. What are you talking about? That's Judaism. It's just like every other. It's another branch of Judaism. What do you religious people think? I mean, they're not doing anything. Imagine a person that's who knows, a Muslim, right? And he doesn't believe in Muhammad, and he doesn't believe in any he doesn't do any of the customs of Islam. How is he going to call himself a Muslim? A Catholic doesn't believe in a Pope. He doesn't believe in the whatever. Doesn't believe in the whole business, right? The Gospels. He's not a Catholic, but a Jew that doesn't believe in anything, and he's against everything. He's still a Jew. How does that work out? It says that's what the Rebbe said. Every Jew, even the Jews that won't give up their name Jew, I redeemed them also, said the previous Rebbe. So, I mean, a normal person would say, wow, I was in prison and I got out. That was pretty good. Like there's people that were in prison camps, by the Vietnam and all these in prison camps in Korea, and they got out of the prison camps. That's a wonderful thing. The previous Rebbe could have said the same thing, bro. I saved the Chabad movement. Chabad movement. Rebbe said, no way. It's like the Rebbe himself. He used to write letters to all the Jewish people, L'kol b'nei Benos Yisrael, whatever they are, right? It would write a letter to all the Jews in the world, all the Jews in the world. I mean, who are you to write a letter to all the Jews in the world? But that's the whole point. The fact of being a Jew is not understandable, and it's on that fact that the Rebbe lives. The Rebbe wants to take that little seed, that little inexplicable clinging to Judaism, Jewish identity that even the most distant Jews have, and make everybody realize why they won't leave it. Why? Because it's so precious and so real. It more than anything in the world can possibly be. Jews, non-religious Jews, are willing to give their lives. Right? They're willing to give their lives. Okay. So this little point of Judaism, that's what's called Geula. When that's the point where God is connected to the world, where the world becomes infinitely good. The world. And the main thing is the Geula, the redemption of the 12th day of Tammuz, was the beginning of the whole new order of Hafatzat HaMayanot, to spread out Judaism outward. Even in the opposite side, the bottom half of the world, in other words, the half of the world opposite where the Torah was given. And even more, it's below, that there's no lower than it. From this low part of the world, America, there's where spreading out the Judaism was, from there to the whole entire world. They said that by means of this, there became the completion of Yafutzu Ma'inatecha Chutza. As Mekayem, then is that the promise of the Melech HaMashiach, then it says that the Mashiach will come when the well springs are spread out. And I just have to think for 1 second. I mean, what's going on over here, right? Let's just take a little example. What's going on? Let's say that in America now, all of a sudden, the American government decided that they were going to go against the Chabad movement. God forbid, it shouldn't be so. But let's say they were going to put the whole army and all the FBI and the CIA, and they're going to, plant plants, and they're going to tear the whole thing apart. Chabad movement, right? That would be terrible. That would be awesome. We wouldn't have a chance. The whole American government, everything would go. They're going to turn off the electricity. They're going to. That would be awful. Well, the previous Rebbe was only one person, and the whole entire government of Russia was, in fact, against him. With all the spies, with all of this, and the ones that were most against him were the Jews. And they know all the ins and outs of Judaism and all that. The whole entire country was against one man, the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe. It's not that we're against the whole movement, like I just said, the terrible scenario that I just thought of, right? I mean, that would be really frightening if you just thought about it. You look, open up the news, and and all of a sudden you see everyone, all the they said, and the Chabad movement. We've discovered that that they slaughter chickens, and that they who knows what, and then this everything that they do is going to be forbidden, right? It's going to be forbidden. Everything they do. They have these ridiculous rituals where they, will take lulav and estrog and they put foxes on their arms and their heads. Who knows what they were praying? We've discovered they are praying that we should be destroyed, right? We say the Mashinim al Tikva. We have to rid ourselves of these people. Imagine a terrible situation. Well, that's what it was by the previous Rebbe, infinitely more so. And even more, in fact, he was doing the things that they said they were accusing him of. In fact, he was doing things that were destructive to the whole idea of communism. In fact, and miraculously, his ideas survived, and he survived, and the whole communism, they fell. It's like, it's like take David and Goliath, I'll multiply it by 1,000. By means of this becomes, that's the whole idea of Yafutza minus Tachachutza. We realize that nothing can stop us, nothing can stop good. I hope according to this, we can explain the hint in our time of the redemption, Yud-based Tammuz, Shalom is that it hints at the Geula of all of the 12 tribes of Israel. Shivtei Yudke, it says. The tribes of Yudke. Tribes of God. Shazui, this is Malata Shalagula. That's the whole thing of the future redemption. Shabo Yigalu. All of the Jewish people will come to their senses. All of them. Kol Yud Shvatim. It says in the redemption when they left Egypt, it says that 4/5 of the Jews didn't leave Egypt because they didn't want to. In the future, they'll all want to. Until not even one Jew will remain in exile. And the whole true redemption of the 13th day of Tammuz. On the 13th day of Tammuz, that's when he got the papers to be released. Like it's known that on the 12th day of Tammuz, one second, let me get this. Nidbaser was, the Rebbe was informed. Was informed that he was free, but he actually got the papers and he was actually freed on the 13th day of Tammuz, the day afterwards. Number 13, that's the gematria, the numerical value of Echad, 1. Shalom is this hints at the Giloi v'Yechuda Shel Olam of the single one of the world, God. Echad, God is one. That's the motto of Judaism. The Kol Olam Kula, in the whole entire world, drawing down this Aleph, the Alufa Shel Olam, into the 7 heavens and the earth. That's Chet. Echad. Echad is Aleph is one. That's the oneness of God, drawing him to the 7 heavens and the earth. 7 heavens is some of the spiritual, all the spiritual worlds, and the earth. That's Chet. That's 8. And Dalet is the 4 directions of the world, not just into the world in general, but into a specific direction. The whole world is filled with, like it says, B'yomahu Yashem Echad Shemo Echad. God will be one, and His name will be one. And this year, especially even more, the connection to Yud-based Tammuz, to the future redemption, from a number of reasons. Number 1, this Yud-based Tammuz is in the days of the week. When is Yud-based Tammuz this year? When the Rebbe spoke this was in 1989, is on Shabbat, just like in this year. Asher Yom Shabbat, that the day of Shabbat in general is attached to the future redemption. Kamuvan, like it's known from the song of the day of Shabbat, Mizmor Shir Yom Shabbat, the song of the day of Shabbat. Every day in our prayers, we say, corresponding to what it was in the Holy Temple. In the Holy Temple, they would sing a different song every day, the Levites would. And so we say that in our prayers. On Shabbat, we say, Mizmor Shir L'Yom HaShabbat. Right? That's Psalm numbers 93. The song of King Saul. King David wrote it, right? The Yom Shekulashen is what's it talking about? The day which is totally Shabbat. And it's rest to God, to the one who enlivens the world. The Cain also benusach the brachas. Also, when we say in the blessing after eating, we say a Rachman hu yanat yanchilenu will give us Yom Shekulo Shabbat. On Shabbat, and the blessing after eating, we say, may God inherit us the day that is totally Shabbat, u'menucha l'chai and a day of rest for the source of all life. Olamim. Kavan shekol Shabbat, since all Shabbat is something like the day that is menucha l'chai. Why? Because Shabbat, you feel God a little bit more. And you're a little, how do you say, more creative on Shabbat, a little happier on the day of Shabbat. Alachat kama v'kama, how much more so the day of Shabbat, when Yud Beit Tammuz, which Yud Beit Tammuz, which you said Yud Beit Tammuz is already hinting at the future redemption. When that falls on Shabbat, so we have two hints at the future redemption. The point of this whole business is that it's really going to happen. The future redemption is not just this beautiful religious idea that we can, sing songs about and talk about Moshiach in this sort of romantic, longing way. We're talking about this supposed to be here, and we're supposed to be very disappointed if it's not here right now. Yud Beis Tammuz is already enough talking about the redemption, even without Shabbat. But when it's connected to Shabbat, this really hints at that there's going to really be such a thing, and it should be here right now, the future redemption, that we'll be free of all of our problems, and we'll be free to really, truly express ourselves and bring out our abilities. Parshat HaShavua, that's one thing. One hint that we have of Yud Beit Tammuz and the future redemption, that it falls on Shabbat this year. Another one, this year, the Torah portion of this year is Chukot and Balak. Now, Balak is especially what is on the reading of the Torah on the seventh. The Torah portion is divided into 7 portions, but the 7th of them, that's what we read relevant to the 7th day of Shabbat, is Shabon Nitparish B'Torah Ayidei Biat Mashiach. Here it talks about clearly the coming of the Mashiach. Like the Rambam says. He says, B'Bir Amuna, he says that it's a law in Judaism, and one of the foundations of Judaism, one of the 13 foundations of Judaism. And also, in addition to that, it's one of the laws of Judaism that you have to wait for Mashiach. You have to believe in Mashiach and anticipate his arrival. The Rambam says that Maimonides says, anyone who does not believe in the Mashiach or does not anticipate his arrival, waiting for his arrival, is not only does he deny all the prophets that talked about Mashiach, but he denies even Moses and the whole entire Torah. The Torah and the Moses, he says he denies the Torah of Moshe Rebbe. So if someone says to you, listen, the Lubavitcher Rebbe is not Mashiach, so you say to him, okay, that's what you think, 100%, everybody has the right to think, but who do you think is Mashiach? What are you waiting for? And the chances are almost 100% that person has no idea what Mashiach is, and if he does, he's not waiting for him. You have to wait for Mashiach. That's, Mashiach. So, it's okay. You don't want to say that Lubavitcher Rebbe is Mashiach, 100%, but you have to be waiting for Mashiach. And you have to know what you're waiting for. And it has to be according to what the Maimonides says. That's what he says. Anyone who does not believe in Mashiach, does not await his arrival, and then he says what the criteria are. He's denying the whole entire Torah. But the Torah testifies it. And also in Parshas Bilam, this is the language of the Rambam, of Maimonides. Also in the Torah portion of Bilam, it says, and there it prophesizes in 2 Mashiachs. Oh, Judaism believes in 2 Mashiachs? Yes. The first Mashiach is King David. The Mashiach Acharon, and the second Mashiach that's going to come from his sons, that he's going to save the Jewish people. In the end, Mashiach ben David. And there it says, then that's what Maimonides is prophesizing on these 2 Mashiachs. He says the Renu v'lo ata, that's David, and Renu v'lo karov, that's talking about Mashiach. There's different interpretations of this when it comes to interpreting the sentences, but all of them agree that it's talking about Mashiach. Ukafisha Mavur, like it explains the Rambam explains in great length and the pratios, and in great detail. a little bit more over here. The sentences in our Torah, the first half of the sentence refers to David, and the second half of the sentence refers to the Melech HaMashiach, Mashiach ben David. So it's understood that this is especially stressed in the time when we're reading in the Torah, on this Torah portion, on Shabbos, when it's Yud Beis Tammuz. That's really connected to Mashiach. And so it is also in the reading of the Torah in Mincha of Shabbos. What do we read about Pinchas? It says Pinchas, that's Eliyahu, Elijah the prophet. Elijah the prophet is the one that's going to announce the future redemption. About his, it says, Hine noten lecha et briti shalom. It says, I have made my covenant of peace. That's with Elijah the prophet. Asher inyan shalom, this idea of peace. In completion, this will only be when the redemption, future redemption comes. And that was also said about Pinchas. Pinchas, that's next week's Torah portion. Shari behold, the future redemption is going to be by means of Pinchas. This is Elijah the prophet. So here we have two connections of Yud Beis Tammuz to Mashiach. First of all, it falls on Shabbat. The second of all, it falls on Parshas Balak, where he talks about Mashiach, and Pinchas, we're just talking about Eliyahu. The third connection to Mashiach, another addition, coincidence, that it was that Mashiach, that we read, that Yud Beis Tammuz falls on Shabbat, and Parshat Balak, that's two. And another one is the Shana, we're talking about the 40th year from the passing away of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe. Sha'az Natan Hashem leiv lachem leiv ladat. God has given us a heart to know, v'enayim lir'os, and eyes to see, v'oznayim lishmoa. Right, this was talking about 50 years after the 40 years, after the previous Rebbe passed away. He passed away in 1950, and this is written in 1990, 1989. This Kaya Enesh Adaita, the Rebbe, then is, it says after 40 years, a person reaches the level of awareness of his teacher. How much more so on the day of redemption. This is also the Yud Beis Tammuz is also the birthday of the previous Rebbe. But then Mazal Gover then it says that his Mazal, what do you say? It's a lucky day. That all of the redemption together with, and then I'm sorry, Beyeter say so Beyeter Oz. Then so all these three things together, four things. Yud Beis Tammuz, and it's on Shabbat, and it's the Parshas Balak, and it's 40 years. When the Rebbe said that it was 40 years from the passing of the previous Rebbe, which 40 is a magical number, which gives you a new insight, a new a connection to your teacher. As all these things come with a sphere of Bina. Bina, it says Ben Arba'im LeBina, it says 40 years to Bina, for Bina. This is in Pirkei Avot. We talked about it. What is? Yeah, in the end of the 5th chapter. We just finished this. Bina. And that's the world of freedom. So all this coming together should fortify us in our faith, in our certainty, in our, how do you say, dissatisfaction that Mashiach is not here right now. And that any second it should be arriving. All these four together, especially the thing of Yud Beis Tammuz. The redemption of the previous Rebbe with tremendous self-sacrifice and amazing victory over the forces of darkness and exile, as we'll talk about, God willing, more tomorrow. Okay, now let us learn. 1 minute. Yom Yom. Yom Yom. Let's say here. It's not, but we suppose that you're right. Elijah the prophet does not. Some people say Elijah the prophet will come afterwards, but generally speaking, the Rambam says it could be either way. So the Rebbe said, well, let's say that it is. The Rambam will come and announce that if Rebbe brings a pasuk, he brings a sentence that I am bringing you Eliyahu Navi, and Eliyahu Navi, he'll pave the way. I just finished in Mishnayos in Edios. It also says Moshiach that Elijah the prophet is going to announce Moshiach. Okay, let's do the, first of all, I want to copy this here so that I'll be able to do it next time. Copy, good. And now, Yom Yom. Stop shit. I didn't actually have to stop shit. Okay. Give me 1 minute here. 1 minute, 1 minute. Give me a moment. Give me a moment. I want to do something here. Excuse me 1 moment, please. Okay.
Recording is on.
The recording is on?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you're